The rain-battered New York City, a relentless drumbeat against the penthouse windows where I stood, trapped in a life I didn't choose. At 27, Elena Harper, was staring down a marriage contract to a woman I'd never met, a CEO named Vivian Caldwell, whose name alone sent shivers through Manhattan's elite. My heart raced with dread, not for love, but for the cage this union promised. My family's crumbling real estate empire had left us no choice. Dad's debts piled higher than the skyscrapers outside, and Vivian, the enigmatic head of Caldwell Enterprises, offered salvation. Marry her and she'd erase our financial ruin. I'd seen her in tabloids, sharp cheekbones, icy blue eyes, a woman who commanded boardrooms with a glance. But why me? A nobody with a fading last name, forced into a loveless deal. The elevator dinged, pulling me from my thoughts. The penthouse door slid open, and there she was, not Vivian but a servant girl maybe 28, with auburn hair tied back and warm brown eyes that flickered with something unspoken. She carried a tray of coffee, her movements precise but soft, like she was used to being invisible. "Miss Harper," she said, her voice low, "your dinner is ready downstairs." I nodded, barely glancing at her. My mind was on Vivian, the woman I'd meet tomorrow, the one who'd own my future. The servant hesitated, her gaze lingering a moment too long, and I caught a flicker of what? Sympathy? Curiosity? I shook it off. She was just a maid and I was just a pawn. Downstairs, the dining room was a cathedral of glass and steel, cold as the deal I was entering. My father sat at the head, his face etched with desperation. "Elena, you understand what's at stake," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Vivian's terms are clear. Marry her and we're saved." Saved? I snapped, my fork clattering against the plate. "You mean sold? What does she even want with me?" He sighed, rubbing his temples. "She needs a wife for appearances. Her company's under scrutiny. Something about investors doubting her stability. A marriage makes her look grounded." Grounded? The word tasted bitter. I was a prop, a means to an end for a woman who probably didn't even know my favorite color, blue, like the ocean I dreamed of escaping to. I pushed my plate away, appetite gone, and excused myself. Back in my room I paced, the city lights mocking my trapped heart. The servant from earlier slipped in to clear a glass I'd left on the nightstand. Her presence was quiet, unassuming, but her eyes caught mine again, and this time I really looked. Her name tag read Clara. There was a strength in her posture, a defiance in the way she carried herself despite the plain uniform. "Do you ever feel stuck?" I asked, surprising myself. Clara paused, her hands stilling on the glass. "Every day," she said softly, her voice carrying a weight I didn't expect. "But sometimes, being stuck is just waiting for the right moment." Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning I couldn't grasp. Before I could respond, she was gone, leaving me with a strange warmth in my chest. I didn't know it then, but Clara was no ordinary servant, and she was about to unravel everything I thought I knew about my future. The next morning, I dressed in a tailored navy dress, my armor for meeting Vivian Caldwell. The contract signing was at her office, a sleek tower that screamed power. My stomach churned as I rode the elevator to the top floor, my father's warnings echoing. "Don't mess this up, Elena." The office was a fortress of glass and chrome, and Vivian sat behind a massive desk, her back to a panoramic view of Manhattan. She was every bit as intimidating as the tabloids promised, tall, with short dark hair framing a face that could cut diamond. Her blue eyes assessed me like I was a balance sheet. "Miss Harper," she said, her voice cool and clipped, "I trust you understand the terms." I swallowed, my throat dry. "I marry you. You save my family. That's the deal, right?" Her lips twitched, not quite a smile. "Precisely. No romance, no complications. Just a partnership." I nodded, signing the papers with a trembling hand. Her gaze never softened, and I felt like a transaction, not a person. But as I left, I caught sight of Clara in the hallway, now in a different uniform, carrying a stack of files. Our eyes met, and she offered a small, knowing smile that made my heart stutter. Why did she seem so familiar? That night, alone in the penthouse, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Vivian's coldness, Clara's warmth, It was a contrast that gnawed at me. I pulled out my phone, searching for anything on Vivian Caldwell. The articles were endless. Ruthless deals, a mysterious past, no mention of a personal life. But one blurry photo caught my eye. A younger Vivian laughing, her arm around a woman with auburn hair. My breath hitched. It couldn't be. I tossed the phone aside, my mind racing. Was Clara more than she seemed? And why did my heart pound at the thought of her, when I was bound to a woman who saw me as nothing more than a contract? The days after signing the contract blurred into a haze of preparations. Vivian insisted on a public engagement announcement, a spectacle to appease her investors. I stood beside her at a gala in a glittering Manhattan ballroom, her hand resting lightly on my arm. A touch that felt more like a leash than affection. Her presence was magnetic, drawing every eye, but her smiles were calculated, her words to me sparse and formal. I felt like a doll on display, my own heart buried under layers of silk and obligation. Clara was there too, moving through the crowd with trays of champagne, her auburn hair catching the chandelier light. Every time our eyes met, a jolt ran through me, like she saw past the facade I was forced to wear. I wanted to talk to her, to ask why her gaze felt like the only real thing in this room of masks, but Vivian's grip tightened whenever I drifted too far. "Stay focused, Elena," Vivian murmured during a quiet moment, her voice low but sharp. "This isn't a game." "I know," I replied, my tone sharper than intended. "I'm here, aren't I?" Her eyes narrowed, but she said nothing, turning to charm a passing investor. I stole a glance at Clara, who was clearing a table nearby. She looked up, and for a split second, her expression softened, like she understood the weight I carried. Then she turned away, and I was left with the echo of her words from that first night, waiting for the right moment. Later, as the gala wound down, I slipped onto a balcony for air, the city's pulse humming below. Clara appeared, balancing a tray, her movements deliberate but her eyes searching. "You looked like you needed a break," she said, offering me a glass of water instead of champagne. I took it, my fingers brushing hers, and a spark shot through me. "How do you do it?" I asked. "Stay so calm in all this chaos?" She laughed softly, a sound that felt like sunlight. "You learn to blend in. But it's harder when you're watching someone else struggle." Her words caught me off guard, and I studied her, really studied her. The way her lips curved, the faint freckles across her nose, the strength in her eyes despite the servant's role. "Why do I feel like I know you?" I asked, almost to myself. Clara's smile faltered, and she looked away, her fingers tightening on the tray. "You don't," she said too quickly. "I'm just here." But she wasn't just here. I felt it in my bones, a pull I couldn't explain. Before I could press her, Vivian's voice cut through the night. "Elena, we're leaving." Clara vanished into the crowd, and I was swept back into Vivian's world of cold efficiency. The next week was a whirlwind of wedding plans, designers, planners, and endless fittings for a dress I didn't care about. Vivian was rarely present, always in meetings, leaving me with her staff. And Clara. She was everywhere, bringing coffee, adjusting table settings, always nearby but never close enough to talk. One evening, I found her alone in the penthouse kitchen, polishing silverware. The silence between us was heavy, charged. I took a chance. "Clara, why do you stay here? You don't seem like this is all you are." She paused, her hand stilling. "Sometimes you stay where you're needed," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Even if it's not where you want to be." Her words hit me like a punch. I wanted to ask more, to understand the sadness in her eyes, but my phone buzzed, Vivian summoning me to another meeting. I left, my heart heavy with questions. The wedding loomed closer, and with it my dread. Vivian was a fortress, untouchable, her motives unclear. But Clara was a mystery I couldn't stop chasing. Late one night, unable to sleep, I wandered into the penthouse library and found a photo album tucked on a high shelf. My hands trembled as I opened it. There, in faded color, was Vivian, younger, softer, her arm around a woman who looked exactly like Clara. The caption read, "Vivian and Claire, 2015. My heart stopped. Claire, not Clara. Was she lying about her name? Her identity? I clutched the album, my mind spinning. Was the servant I couldn't stop thinking about tied to Vivian's past? And if so, why was she here hiding in plain sight? The next morning I confronted Clara in the hallway, my voice shaking. Who are you really? She froze, her eyes wide with something like fear or guilt. Elena, please, she whispered. Don't. But I couldn't stop. Not now. Not when my heart was pulling me toward her, even as I was bound to a woman I barely knew. The confrontation with Clara left me reeling, her whispered plea echoing in my mind. Don't. But I couldn't let it go. The photo, the name Claire, the way her eyes held secrets I was desperate to unravel. It consumed me. I was days away from marrying Vivian Caldwell, a woman who treated me like a contract clause, yet my thoughts were tangled in Clara, a servant who felt like the only real thing in this gilded cage. I spent the next morning scouring the internet for answers. Vivian's past was a locked vault, but I found scraps, a decade-old article mentioning a Claire Dawson, a woman linked to Vivian during her rise to power. The details were vague, the trail cold, but the resemblance to Clara was undeniable. My heart pounded as I pieced it together. Was Clara hiding from Vivian? From me? And why did I care so much? That afternoon, Vivian summoned me to her office. She sat at her desk, her posture rigid, her eyes scanning a tablet. The wedding's in 3 days, she said without looking up. You'll move into my estate tomorrow. No more penthouse. I bristled at her tone, the way she spoke like I was an employee. And what happens after? I just play the perfect wife while you run your empire. Her gaze flicked to me, sharp and unyielding. You knew the deal, Elena. Don't act surprised now. I wanted to scream, to demand why she chose me, why she needed this charade. But her walls were impenetrable, and I left feeling smaller than ever. Back at the penthouse, I found Clara folding linens in the guest room. Her hands moved with practiced grace, but her shoulders were tense, like she sensed my turmoil. Clara, I said, my voice low. Or should I call you Claire? Her hands froze and she turned, her face pale. Where did you hear that name? I found a photo. You and Vivian years ago. What's going on? Why are you pretending to be someone else? She stepped back, her eyes darting to the door. You don't understand, Elena. It's complicated. Then explain it. My voice cracked, frustration spilling over. I'm marrying a woman I don't know. And you're the only one who feels human. But you're lying to me. Clara's eyes softened, and for a moment I thought she'd break. But she shook her head. I can't. Not yet. Just trust me, please. Trust her? I barely knew her, yet every fiber of me wanted to. I turned away, my chest tight, and left her standing there. That night, I packed for Vivian's estate, my mind a storm of questions. Clara's secrecy, Vivian's coldness. It was suffocating. But beneath it all was a spark, a pull toward Clara that I couldn't ignore, no matter how wrong it felt. The move to Vivian's estate was like stepping into a fortress. The sprawling mansion outside the city was all sharp angles and pristine lawns, as cold as its owner. Clara was there, too, part of the staff, her presence a quiet constant. I caught her watching me as I settled in, her eyes filled with a mix of caution and something deeper, something that made my pulse race. One evening, as I wandered the estate's gardens to clear my head, I found Clara sitting on a bench, a book in her lap. The setting sun painted her auburn hair in shades of fire, and my breath caught. I sat beside her, the silence heavy but not uncomfortable. Why do you stay? I asked again, softer this time. You don't belong here, Clara. Not like this. She closed her book, her fingers tracing the cover. I stay because I have to. For someone I lost and someone I'm trying to protect. Her words were a puzzle, each piece sharp with pain. I wanted to reach for her, to bridge the gap between us, but the weight of my engagement ring, Vivian's ring, held me back. I'm marrying her tomorrow, I said, my voice barely audible. And I don't even know why I'm doing this anymore. Clara's hand brushed mine, a fleeting touch that sent warmth through me. You're stronger than you think, Elena. You'll find your reason. Her words stayed with me as I walked back to the mansion, my heart torn between duty and desire. The wedding was hours away, and I was no closer to understanding Vivian or Clara. But that night, as I lay in bed, I made a decision. I wouldn't let this marriage define me. I'd find the truth no matter the cost. The morning of the wedding dawned gray and heavy, mirroring my mood. The ceremony was a blur of cameras and forced smiles, Vivian's hand cold in mine as we said our vows. Her eyes never met mine, her focus on the crowd, the image we projected. I felt like a ghost in my own life, but Clara's presence in the background, quiet, watchful, kept me grounded. After the reception, as guests toasted our love, I slipped away to the estate's library. Clara was there, arranging books, her face unreadable. "Congratulations," she said, her voice tight. "Don't," I said, stepping closer. "Tell me who you are. Please. I can't keep pretending this doesn't matter." She hesitated, then reached into her pocket and pulled out a locket. Inside was a photo of her and Vivian, younger, happier. "I was Claire Dawson," she said, her voice breaking. "And Vivian, she was everything to me. Until she wasn't." Clara's words hit like a tidal wave. I was Claire Dawson. And Vivian, she was everything to me. The locket in her hand gleamed under the library's soft light. The photo inside a frozen moment of a past I couldn't fathom. My new wife, Vivian Caldwell, the untouchable CEO, had once been everything to this woman standing before me, now disguised as a servant. My heart pounded, torn between shock and a strange, aching jealousy. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked, my voice trembling. "And why are you here, pretending to be someone else?" Claire closed the locket, her fingers trembling. "Because you deserve to know who you're married to. And because I can't keep watching you hurt without saying something." She stepped closer, her brown eyes searching mine. 10 years ago, Vivian and I were in love. She was different then. Ambitious but warm, full of dreams we shared. But when her company took off, she changed. Power consumed her. She pushed me away, said I was a liability to her image. I left, but I never stopped, her voice cracked. I never stopped loving her. I staggered back, my mind reeling. "So you came back as Clara? Why? To punish her? To what?" "To understand," she said softly. "I needed to know if the woman I loved was still in there. And then I met you, Elena, and I saw you trapped in the same cage I was." Her words cut deep, exposing the raw truth of my marriage. Vivian didn't love me. She didn't even know me. I was a means to an end, just as Claire had been. But Clara's presence, her warmth, her pain, it stirred something in me I hadn't felt in years. Hope, desire, a longing to be seen. "I don't know what to do," I admitted, my voice breaking. "I'm married to her, Clara. I can't just walk away." She reached for my hand, her touch gentle but electric. "You don't have to decide now. But you're not alone, Elena. Not anymore." Before I could respond, the library door opened, and Vivian's silhouette filled the frame. "Elena," she said, her voice icy. "What are you doing here?" Clara dropped my hand, stepping back, her face a mask of neutrality. I stammered, "Just talking." Vivian's eyes flicked to Clara, and for a moment I thought I saw recognition, a flicker of something raw in her gaze. But it vanished, replaced by her usual steel. "It's late. Come to bed." I followed her, my heart pounding, Clara's confession burning in my mind. That night, lying beside Vivian in a bed that felt like a battlefield, I couldn't sleep. Her breathing was steady, distant, while my thoughts were with Clara, the woman who'd loved her, lost her, and now stood closer to me than anyone else. The next morning, Vivian was gone before I woke, leaving a note about a board meeting. I wandered the estate, searching for Clara, but she was nowhere. Panic crept in. Had she left? Had Vivian seen through her disguise? I found her at last in the attic, sorting old files, her face drawn. "You can't keep avoiding me," I said, closing the door behind me. "What happens now? You're Claire Dawson. You loved her. And I'm what? Caught in the middle." Clara set the files down, her eyes weary. "I don't know, Elena. I thought I could stay hidden, watch from the sidelines. But being near you, seeing you fight for yourself, it's changed things." "Changed what?" I pressed, stepping closer. My heart raced, torn between fear and a pull I couldn't name. She looked at me, her gaze steady. "I'm starting to care about you. More than I should." The air between us crackled, and for a moment I forgot Vivian, the marriage, the lies. I wanted to close the distance to feel her warmth against me, but the weight of my wedding ring stopped me. "I'm married," I whispered, more to myself than to her. "I know," she said, her voice barely audible, "but you deserve more than a contract." Her words lingered as I left the attic, my heart a battlefield of its own. Over the next few days I played the role of Vivian's wife, attending dinners, smiling for cameras, but Clara was always there, a quiet presence that grounded me. We stole moments, a brush of hands, a shared glance, each one pulling me deeper into something I couldn't define. One night, after another cold dinner with Vivian, I found Clara in the garden, her silhouette soft against the moonlight. "Tell me about her," I said, sitting beside her. "The Vivian you loved." Clara's smile was bittersweet. She was fearless. She'd sneak me into her dorm at NYU, talk about building an empire. She made me feel like I could do anything. "And now?" I asked, my voice tight. "Now she's a stranger," Clara said. "But sometimes I see glimpses of her. In the way she looks at you when she thinks no one's watching." Her words startled me. "She doesn't look at me. Not like that." Clara's eyes met mine, intense and unwavering. "She does. And it scares her." Before I could respond, a shadow moved in the garden, Vivian watching us from a distance. Her face was unreadable, but her presence sent a chill through me. What did she know? And what would she do if she learned the truth about Clara? Vivian's shadow lingered in my mind long after she disappeared into the night. Had she heard us? Did she suspect Clara's true identity? The questions gnawed at me, but Clara's words, "She looks at you when she thinks no one's watching," stirred a different kind of unease. I didn't want Vivian's attention, not the way I craved Clara's. Yet the idea that Vivian might feel something, anything, for me complicated the walls I'd built around my heart. The next morning, Vivian was colder than usual. Her instructions clipped as she prepared for a business trip. "You'll stay here," she said, not meeting my eyes. "I'll be back in a week. Don't cause trouble." "Trouble?" I snapped, tired of her detachment. "I'm your wife, not your prisoner." Her jaw tightened, but she said nothing, leaving me with the echo of her footsteps. I should have felt relieved, but her absence only amplified my confusion. Clara was my anchor now, but every moment with her felt like a step toward a cliff I couldn't see. I found her in the kitchen, kneading dough, her hands steady but her eyes distant. "She's gone," I said, leaning against the counter. "You don't have to hide for a while." Clara's hands paused, flour dusting her fingers. "I'm not hiding from her. Not anymore." "Then what are you doing?" I asked, my voice softer than I meant. "You're Claire Dawson. You could leave, start over. Why stay?" She looked at me, her brown eyes piercing. "Because of you, Elena. I see you fighting and it reminds me of who I used to be. I can't walk away from that." Her words stole my breath. I stepped closer, the space between us charged with unspoken truths. "Clara, I'm married. To her. What are we even doing?" She reached out, her hand hovering near mine before pulling back. "I don't know. But I know I feel something when I'm with you. Something real." The air grew thick and I wanted to lean in, to let go of the fear holding me back. But the weight of my vows, my family's survival, anchored me. I turned away, my heart pounding. "I need time," I whispered. Clara nodded, her expression a mix of hope and pain. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here." The next few days were a blur of stolen moments. Clara and I talked late into the night, sharing stories of our pasts, my childhood dreams of painting, her love of poetry. Each conversation pulled me closer, her laughter a balm to my fractured heart. But with every smile, guilt gnawed at me. I was married. To Vivian. And Clara's history with her was a shadow I couldn't escape. One afternoon, while exploring the estate, I found a locked room in the west wing. Curiosity got the better of me and I picked the lock, a skill from my rebellious teenage years. Inside was a study, walls lined with photos and awards. One frame caught my eye, Vivian and Claire laughing at a beach, their hands intertwined. The date was 2014, the year before Clara said Vivian changed. I sank into a chair, the photo heavy in my hands. Vivian had loved her deeply once. What had broken them? And why was I, a stranger, now her wife? The question swirled until Clara's voice broke through. "You shouldn't be in here," she said, standing in the doorway, her face pale. I held up the photo. "This is you, isn't it? You and Vivian. What happened, Clara? Why did she push you away?" She crossed the room, her movements slow, and took the photo from me. "She got scared," she said, her voice barely audible. "Her investors, her family, they wanted a certain image. A lesbian relationship didn't fit. She chose power over me. My heart ached for her, for the love she'd lost. But anger flared too, for Vivian, for the way she'd hurt Clara and now trapped me in her game. And now I'm her image," I said bitterly. "Another piece in her puzzle." Clara's hand found mine, her touch grounding me. "You're more than that, Elena. You're not just her wife. You're you." Her words ignited something in me, and before I could stop myself, I leaned in, my lips brushing hers. The kiss was soft, tentative, but it set my world ablaze. She pulled back, her eyes wide with fear and longing. "Elena, we can't." "I know," I said, my voice shaking. "But I don't know how to stop this." We stood there, caught in a moment too fragile to hold. But the sound of a car engine outside shattered it. Vivian was back early. Panic surged through me as Clara slipped out, leaving me alone with the photo and a heart full of secrets. That night, Vivian found me in the study. Her eyes landed on the open photo album, and her face hardened. "What are you doing, Elena?" I stood, defiance rising. "Trying to understand you. Why you're like this. Why you chose me." Her gaze flickered, and for the first time I saw a crack in her armor. "You don't need to understand," she said, her voice low. "You just need to do your part." But as she turned to leave, I saw her glance at the photo of her and Clara, and the pain in her eyes told me everything. She wasn't as cold as she seemed. Vivian's pain lingered in my mind, a fleeting glimpse of the woman she'd been before power hardened her. But it was Clara's kiss that burned brighter, a reckless spark that threatened to consume me. I was married to one woman, falling for another, and caught in a web of secrets that could unravel everything. The estate felt smaller each day, its walls closing in as I wrestled with my heart and my duty. Clara avoided me after the kiss, her presence scarce as she buried herself in work. I caught glimpses of her, carrying laundry, polishing silver, but she kept her distance, her eyes guarded. I wanted to chase her, to demand answers, but Vivian's early return kept me on edge. She was watching me now, her gaze sharper, like she sensed the shift in me. One evening I found Clara in the library, shelving books in the dim light. "You can't keep running from me," I said, my voice low but firm. "Not after what happened." She turned, her face a mix of fear and resolve. "Elena, I shouldn't have let it happen. You're married. And I'm not who I was." "But you're still her," I said, stepping closer. "Claire Dawson. The woman who loved Vivian. The woman who's making me feel things I don't understand." Her breath hitched and she shook her head. "You don't know what you're saying. Vivian's dangerous when she's threatened. If she finds out who I am, then why stay?" I cut in, frustration boiling over. "Why put yourself through this?" "Because I owe it to her," Clara snapped, her voice breaking. "And to you. I left once and I lost everything. I won't do it again." Her words hit like a punch and I saw the weight she carried, the guilt, the love, the hope. I reached for her, but she stepped back, her eyes pleading. "Please, Elena. We can't." Before I could argue, Vivian's voice echoed from the hallway. "Elena, I need you." Clara slipped away, and I followed Vivian to her office, my heart pounding. She stood by the window, her back to me, the city lights casting her in shadow. "You've been distracted," she said, her tone deceptively calm. "Is there something I should know?" My pulse raced, but I held her gaze. "I'm doing what you asked. What more do you want?" She turned, her blue eyes piercing. "Loyalty. This marriage is a partnership, Elena. Don't forget that." Her words felt like a warning, and I wondered how much she knew. Did she suspect Clara? Me? I nodded, escaping to my room, but sleep wouldn't come. Clara's confession, our kiss, Vivian's watchful eyes. It was too much. The next day I found a note slipped under my door, written in Clara's careful handwriting. "Meet me in the garden at midnight. We need to talk." My heart leapt, torn between fear and longing. When midnight came, I slipped outside, the cool air sharp against my skin. Clara was there, her auburn hair loose, her eyes bright with determination. "I'm leaving," she said before I could speak. "Tomorrow. I can't stay here, not like this." "No," I said, my voice breaking. "You can't just go. Not after everything." She stepped closer, her hands trembling. "Elena, I'm falling for you. And it's tearing me apart because you're hers. But I can't keep pretending I'm just a servant, watching you live a life you hate." Her words broke something in me, and I kissed her, desperate and fierce. This time she didn't pull away. The world fell away, leaving only her warmth, her breath, her heart beating against mine. But as we broke apart, a figure stepped from the shadows, Vivian. Her face was a mask of fury and pain, her voice low and deadly. "Claire. I knew it was you." Clara froze, her hand still in mine. "Vivian, Don't," Vivian snapped, her eyes blazing. "You think you can come back, manipulate my wife, ruin everything?" "She's not manipulating me," I said, stepping between them. "I care about her. And I'm done pretending this marriage is anything but a lie." Vivian's gaze flickered, hurt flashing before her mask snapped back into place. "You have no idea what you're throwing away, Elena." "I know exactly what I'm choosing," I said, my voice steady for the first time. "I choose her." Vivian's jaw clenched and she turned to Clara. "Leave. Now. Or I'll make sure you lose more than you did 10 years ago." Clara's eyes met mine, full of fear but also resolve. "I'm not running this time," she said, her voice firm. "Not from you, Vivian. And not from her." The standoff felt like it lasted forever, the air thick with tension. Vivian's eyes darted between us, and for the first time I saw her falter. "This isn't over," she said, then turned and walked away, leaving me and Clara in the moonlight, our hands still clasped, our futures uncertain but intertwined. The garden was silent after Vivian's departure, the moonlight casting long shadows that mirrored the weight of what had just happened. Clara's hand trembled in mine, but her grip was firm, a lifeline in the storm we'd unleashed. I'd chosen her, over Vivian, over duty, over the safety of my family's name. But the cost of that choice loomed like the city skyline, vast and unforgiving. "Elena," Clara whispered, her voice raw, "you didn't have to do that. Not for me." I turned to her, my heart racing. "I did it for me. For us. I can't live a lie anymore." Her eyes searched mine and she pulled me close, her forehead resting against mine. "Then we face this together," she said. "No matter what she does." The next morning Vivian was gone again, her absence a cold void in the estate. I expected retaliation, legal threats, financial ruin, but instead there was silence. It unnerved me more than her anger. Clara stayed close, no longer hiding her identity. She was Claire Dawson again, her strength shining through the servant's facade she'd worn for so long. We spent the day talking, planning, unraveling the mess of our hearts. Claire told me more about her past with Vivian, the late-night dreams, the heartbreak, the years she spent rebuilding herself only to return, hoping to find closure. "I didn't expect you," she admitted, her smile soft. "You changed everything." I laughed, a sound I hadn't heard from myself in months. "You changed me too. I was ready to give up, to let this marriage define me. But you made me want more." But our fragile peace didn't last. That evening Vivian returned, her face unreadable as she summoned us to her office. My stomach churned as we faced her, Claire's hand brushing mine for courage. Vivian stood behind her desk, her posture rigid, but her eyes held something new, vulnerability. "I've spent years building this empire," she said, her voice low. "Every choice, every sacrifice was for control, for power. But seeing you too," and she paused, her gaze flickering to Claire. "It reminded me of what I gave up." Claire stiffened beside me. "You pushed me away, Vivian. You chose this life over me." Vivian's jaw tightened, but she nodded. "I did. And I've regretted it every day since. But I won't make the same mistake with you, Elena." My heart stopped. "What are you saying?" She slid a folder across the desk, divorce papers. "I'm letting you go," she said, her voice steady but laced with pain. Your family's debts are cleared. You're free. I stared at the papers, my mind reeling. Freedom. It was what I dreamed of, but now with Claire beside me, it felt like a gift I didn't deserve. Why? I asked, my voice barely audible. Vivian's eyes met mine, soft for the first time. Because I see the way you look at her. It's how I used to look at Claire. I won't keep you in a cage. Tears stung my eyes as I took the papers, my hands shaking. Claire's arm slipped around me, grounding me. Thank you, I whispered, though the words felt too small for the weight of her sacrifice. Vivian turned to Claire, her expression softening further. I'm sorry, she said, her voice breaking. For everything. Claire nodded, tears in her eyes. I forgive you. We left the office, the papers clutched in my hand, my heart full and aching. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind, moving out, starting over, building a life with Claire. My family was safe, their debts erased, and I was free to love, to paint, to dream again. Claire and I found a small apartment in Brooklyn, its walls filled with my canvases and her poetry. We were far from perfect, haunted by the scars of our pasts, but together we were whole. One evening, as we sat on our tiny balcony, the city alive below us, Claire took my hand. I never thought I'd find this again, she said, her voice soft. Love. Hope. You. I kissed her, the taste of freedom on her lips. We found each other, I said. And that's enough. In the distance, Manhattan's skyline gleamed, a reminder of the life I'd left behind. Vivian was out there, rebuilding her own heart, and I hoped she'd find peace. But here with Claire I'd found something better. A love that was real, fierce, and ours.